Okay, so I'm breaking this video into two parts, and because it got a little long. So part one is going to be editing the first file and verifying that it compiles. Part two, I'm going to edit the second file, and then I'm going to compile it, run it, and demonstrate running the updated chain. This is part one. Okay, so I spoke the other week about we're going to add the contract palette to our substrate chain that we did the other week. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. Okay, so we have I have we want the first file we're gonna have to edit is the cargo file for the runtime. So as you can see here, they explain there's one change in this file and most changes in that, and we're going to have to also look at the node code. So they talk about how we have under our dependencies, we already have let's see, under our dependencies, we already have palette balances. Let me see, right there. We have a bunch of stuff. And under features, we already have codec, where is it? Codec standard, frame executive, several other things. Some of the palettes, we have balances standard, we have grandpa. So here, we're going to have to add another palette. And let's see. So there are going to be two changes here. In the dependencies, we're going to have to add contracts and contracts primitives. Again, we did talk about the palette contracts. So I guess we'll add that. Add it, and so based on the balances import above, so we have dependencies. Let's go back down up here, and palette balances. So you have to give it whether you want default features true or false and the version. So we're going to paste those two lines in. However, notice that balances is 2.01, so we're going to change these to 2.01 so they match. So we have the same version of things. This is like any, if you work with Java, if you're importing the wrong runtime, runtimes that are way different versions. So let's say you have version 5 of a particular thing you're importing, and you try to import, a dependency that's only version 3, because they are codependent on each other. Or, they expect certain features to be there or not be there, and every version there can be changes. So let's say you have a library that depends on a certain method in one of its dependent ones. One of the libraries that has a dependency on, and you use an older version where that call that it's expecting to be able to do is not there. It says, I need to call function X, and it function X isn't there because it hasn't been, it's an older version and it hasn't been put in there yet. So we have to make sure our versions match. I don't think the order is irrelevant, I believe, because we're specifying what parameter we're giving it. So we got that in there. Now the next thing is we also have to add it to the features. So again, we go down to the features and under standard, we need to add palette contracts and palette contracts primitive. So why don't we put that after balances as well. Okay, so, and now we get to, let's save this. And now we get to the actual librs. So let's go to, here we go. And the first thing we're going to have to do is add some constants. Again, remember how we spoke about how when you're using a trait you have to define the items it requires, the parameters it requires. So we need to add the contract price units. So what millicents, cents, and dollars. So why don't we do that again after balance. I'm going to copy this. And it says add this block. And we got that, so now it has those defined. And now here we've got to add our different parameter types and add our, we're defining our, implementing our traits, and we're implementing our trait. So we're going to add this, copy, and let's see where we want to put that. Parameter types, pub. Be right under palette timestamp, it looks like. Palette timestamp. So let's find that. Okay. So we're going to add it right there. And got that in there. So requires the trait contract address for. The contract palette itself implements this type, so that's taken care of. We can use that to satisfy that, or what's required here. So we know if we look at, we have a storage, we have to store things, events, callable functions, configuration values, and the module type. So after this, we have to add the line palette contracts, and that will be under the this will be right under, right towards the bottom, it looks like, at the bottom of the contract, runtime. And let's find the contract runtime. Contract runtime. Construct runtime. Constructor. So this is our constructor. Let's see. Let's move this over. Here we go. Here we go. So as you can see, this is where we construct our runtime thing for our substrate contract. And let's find the bottom here. So construct runtime, as you can see, starts here. So this is going to go right in the bottom. And it's going to define, so we define payment. This is where we define all the different palettes we're going to use. Right here in the runtime. And they say this is a good time to try it out. So why don't we do that? We're going to check just the runtime. Apparently with Cargo you can do that. Again, this is something I'm still getting my head around. Let's see what happens. The not parse input as TOML. Line 59, column 11. Let's go back to our TOML. Line 59. I see what we added here. And what the error was. Expected new line, found that it didn't. Failed to parse manifest at line 59, which is right here. What did we add up here? Palette, balances, palette timestamp. I think we might have lost something out here. This is in the runtime benchmarks where we weren't supposed to add. We were adding it in standard. In standard we added contract palettes, standard, and contracts primitive standard. Okay. We added the dependencies, as with other to the runtime standard features. Okay. So we added this to the runtime standard features, and it doesn't like something way up here. Well, let's try this, because this I didn't, should have done it there. So let's see what we get with this one. Expected new line, found an identifier. On line 59. You know what? I think is the problem. Somehow this got added in. So let's get rid of that. And try that again. Failed to. Oh, we got some other weird stuff that's gotten in here. Oh yeah, here we go. Contract standard, contracts primitive standard, palette, okay. Got a whole bunch of other there we go. And let's try this again. Yeah, it seems like sometimes, yeah, it seems to like that. So basically what happened is a whole bunch of garbage got into my file. And as you can see, the first check went, the original one they recommended. Because as you can see, look at you're basically in standard specifying the palettes that you're going to be using in this thing. So, and then we're going to run the second check. You have to be careful with that. Sometimes garbage gets in your file and that'll obviously mess it up. So it looks like it's going to take a little bit. So we're going to come back after this is done compiling and running this test and carry on with the second test. Okay, so I got it to pass its checks. I was running into weird issues because for some reason, I was getting the commands getting put into my source code file, and it didn't like that. But eventually it did work correctly. So now we're on to the, I guess this is no, let's go on to the next step. So after we ran this check, we have to let the, we have to expose the endpoint so they can read contracts so it can be found, essentially. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our cargo file, and under dependencies we're going to add, let's see, this is dependencies, palette contract. We're going to add this right under palette contracts primitive. Here. Let's get rid of this. And we have see if we have any other runtime. I'm a little concerned that this may not work, but because we're using the RPC, we're using version 0.0.8, but we'll find out, I guess, because everything else in here is 2.01. So I'm going to leave it. If we have a problem, we're going to have to upgrade it. And in standard, we want to add this under the features. So again, we're exposing the features. Palette contracts. So we have it for transactions. And we're going to stick this right here. Again, no guarantees because I'm not 100% sure if the version's correct. And then, let's save this. In our, we have to tell it about it. So, about this palette runtime API. So we're going to put that with all our uses up here. We need to then we're going to put this in the runtime, and it looks like we're going to put this in the bottom of the runtime. Let's see if it's there already. Oh. So here, implement runtime. What's it? So we got all these functions. So we're implementing these different classes in here. So let's see where runtime ends, because that's where we want to make sure that's put in the correct location. So and Okay. So this looks like it goes just make sure that this is, yes, that is the match. So it needs to go right here at the bottom. And at least that's how it appears. Let's move that. Add this block and end. So copy, and we're going to stick it right there. And hopefully that'll work. We hope. And again, we're going to check it, make sure that it's still working. And it did. Okay, so this is the end of part 1, and what we're going to do in part 2 is to get the second part fixed or edited, which is the they call it the outer node or the RPC node, which sounds to me like remote procedure call. That's going to be for next time. As you can see, I did get it running, and we're going to talk about that, do the second part of the modifications, and talk about that, and then start up our node next time. So the end of part 1. Again, if you like this, please give me a like if you found it useful. If you want to see more, if you're looking forward to part 2 and further discussion, then please subscribe, and I will see you in part 2.